I'm concerned that I might have swallowed a toothpick. I say might because I'm not entirely sure. What happened was that I was eating a sandwich with toothpicks in it. I took a bite, and I felt discomfort when I swallowed. The pain wasn't sharp, more like discomfort that something was stuck in my upper chest area. I thought maybe a bite of food just went down the wrong pipe, but 7 hours later, I was still feeling pressure in my chest. I went to the ER and they said that there was no scratching visible in my throat, and they did x-rays to make sure that there was no perforation/holes anywhere in my throat, chest, or stomach. They said that all they could do was send me home and told me to come back if I had any severe abdominal pain, vomiting, or bleeding. My chest still aches and it feels like there's something there, so I'm really scared that it's still there and they just didn't see it, since they didn't do an endoscopy or anything. What should I do? It has now been about 30 hours since I ate the sandwich.
Thank you for using JustAnswer. It will help if you could provide some further information. Are you having any difficulty swallowing? When you swallow, is there any worsening of symptoms?
Hi. When I swallow food or a big drink of water, the pressure in my chest increases/becomes a little closer to actual pain, but only for a second or two. When I just swallow saliva, it doesn't hurt. I'm having no difficulty breathing at all. If I did swallow a toothpick, I don't understand how it could be stuck in my chest, since I've eaten 3 meals in the last 24 hours. Wouldn't it get pushed down?
Thank you for the additional information. There are several considerations in this situations. Yes, if you are able to swallow a meal, it would usually push a toothpick along. Also, the wood of a toothpick will typically fall apart in a moist environment, which also would tend to promote the toothpick going downstream. Typically, a swallowed toothpick will pass without difficulty. The most difficult turn to navigate is through the throat into the esophagus. And if the toothpick is able to make it past this point, it will typically be able to pass through the rest of the gut without a problem. Since there is a sharp point, there is a small risk of it getting stuck, but it is very unusual for it to do so, and if this happens, there is usually an increase in symptoms, which is why you were advised to return for an increase in symptoms. However, it is possible for a toothpick to scratch the surface of the esophagus as it is passing into the stomach. And the scratched surface can continue to feel as though there is something stuck in the esophagus for a few days before it heals. Generally speaking, if there is not a significant amount of pain and you are able to swallow without difficulty, the usual approach is to give it time to see if the symptoms resolve. However, if the symptom persists beyond several days or if there is an increase in symptoms, then it would be appropriate to pursue further evaluation. At this stage, it would be okay to drink a piquant antacid, which will coat the esophagus and may be soothing. If you have any further questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much. I'll give you a great rating, I promise, but just to clarify, you're saying that, if I did swallow a toothpick, it's very unlikely that it's still in my esophagus, because I've been able to eat a few meals with only a slight increase in discomfort? My main concern here is that, from what I've read, it's much easier to find/remove a toothpick from the esophagus than it is from the intestine, and the more time that passes, the more likely it is that it'll end up in the intestine. Like every other stupid scared person on the internet, I've read up on the rare cases of fatal intestinal perforations, and I just don't want to end up in a situation 2 weeks later where I could have saved myself from some complex surgery down the road if I'd somehow convinced a doctor to do an endoscopy now. If you're convinced that it would have to be in my intestine at this point, then there's really nothing I can do but wait and monitor. I just want to make sure that it's extremely unlikely that it's stuck in my esophagus somewhere, where it could theoretically be retrieved.
It would be unlikely that it is still in your esophagus. Also, despite the horror stories on the internet, it is actually quite rare for any foreign object to be swallowed and cause any damage or perforation of the intestine. Yes, it is possible, but it is also possible that you could die in a car accident as you drive to work or the store. And the risk of dying from a car accident is greater than the risk of dying from ingestion of a toothpick. In life, it is important to maintain appropriate perspective regarding what risk is present on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. You've really set my mind at ease. I'll make an appointment with my GP this week, but I'll try not to stress too much in the meantime. Thanks again. Smile.
You're welcome. I hope that everything goes well.
If you have a health question and want to chat with a doctor now, visit justanswer.com/ythealth.